Okay, are you tired of seeing me shoot does under the 100-year-old apple tree? If that's the case, maybe this episode of Death by Bunjie is for you. This is the Death by Bunjie belated Crossbow season wrap-up video. Well, the 37 days of awesome has come and gone here. The 37 days of awesome is Pennsylvania's crossbow season. It's the archery season here in Pennsylvania. 37 days long. If you add up all of the days that are available to hunt during that season, it is typically 37 days. We don't hunt on Sundays in Pennsylvania. That's just the way it is. So you exclude those Sundays. But during that 6-week period or so, we have about 37 available days for hunting. And I refer to that as the crossbow season simply because that's when I hunt with a crossbow. I hunt through with a crossbow. Those of you watching this channel know that I hunt with a crossbow primarily all through the season, not just in the archery season, not just in the rifle season, which I refer to as the second crossbow season, but also in the late season. I also hunt with a crossbow then. Very fortunate now that the season is over to have 2 does in the freezer. Very fortunate to say that and very happy to say that. The way I look at it, my sort of strategy hunting here on this place, I feed deer all year long with food plots, with all the work that we do, habitat management, all that fun stuff. And there's lots of videos about that. If you're new to Death by Bunjie, go check out those videos. I do a lot of that stuff and really enjoy it. Big bucks are not what this channel is about. Those of you watching it, those of you who have read the video descriptions know that that's not what this channel's about. It's really more about the overall whole picture, about how I enjoy this place, how I enjoy hunting with a crossbow, and how the crossbow, how Bunjie, helps me enjoy this place that much more. I will shoot does and eat does. I am more than happy to shoot doe after doe after doe. We have a lot of does on this property that visit this property, that use this property, some of which probably call this property home, hopefully. Have a lot of does that come in and out of the food plots, and I'm happy to take a doe here and there to fill the freezer with. I don't feel pressured in any way to shoot a buck other than the buck that I am looking for. So my strategy is essentially, I look at all of the trail camera pictures throughout the year, get a sense of what bucks are on the property, what bucks might be passing through, and I will be happy to shoot one of those bucks or a buck that is older, more mature, bigger, with a bigger rack, whatever. Happy to shoot one of those, but in the meantime, while I'm waiting for those bucks to show up, I'm more than happy to shoot a doe or two. So this video is really about what I did this past season, other than the previous 2 videos that you saw from the crossbow season, that you saw from the 37 days of awesome. You saw me shoot 2 does up there in front of the apple tree, the 100-year-old apple tree. But I did a lot more hunting and shot some other video, and I'm going to talk about that in this video. First, let's go to the well pad food plot. Those of you watching Death by Bunjie are very familiar with the well pad food plot. I've had a lot of deer activity down there, filmed a lot of hunts down there, always hunt from a blind in that location just because of the way that the property is set up there. Obviously, the reason I call it the well pad food plot is because it has a well pad next to it. I started that food plot years and years ago with a throw and grow blend of radishes and that sort of thing, and brassicas and ryegrass, all that good stuff, and have since reseeded it, frost seeded it, and reseeded it and top seeded it with clover. It's been a really nice clover food plot. I don't mow as much as I should. I don't get out there and spray as much as I should, but it still is full of clover. If you look between the weeds, there was plenty of clover this year during the 37 days of awesome for the deer to get out there and have their share of clover. It attracted deer after deer after deer. I had a lot of pictures down there. This year, in addition to that, I went so far as to put in those 3 mock scrape trees. So there are actually 4 along the perimeter of that food plot. Those of you watching this channel saw videos about that as well. You can go check those out if you're interested in making mock scrape trees, licking branches, that sort of thing of your own. I've done a couple of different varieties of them here, and I really like those. Last year I was able to shoot a nice buck over a scrape location. Early in the season, the weather doesn't necessarily cooperate. It was an Indian summer here in northeastern Pennsylvania. I sat in the blind down there over the well pad food plot, sweating on my first outing, my first chance to go and hunt over that food plot. And I'll tell you, my plans were to sit the entire afternoon until dark. I sat a couple of hours and realized I was sweating so bad, even though I had taken a scent-free shower, even though I was wearing all my scent-free clothes, I was still going to alert deer if they happened to come into that food plot. There was no way that they weren't going to smell me. So I packed up all my gear and headed out. I did head back to the well pad food plot, however, sat there on another occasion, sitting the entire day, looking to sit there for an extended period of time, knowing that does were frequenting this food plot, knowing that if does were frequenting this food plot, I might have a buck or two. I sat there, and unfortunately, that was the day that the electric company decided to come in to do some maintenance on the power lines up by the house. Even though that was hundreds of yards away, it alerted the deer and got them on edge, and eventually they ran out of the food plot. Still a lot of activity at that well pad food plot. I posted a video not too long ago of 2 bucks fighting at one of my mock scrapes that I had put in, one of those licking branch trees that we had put in. Genevieve and I put that in over the summer. The Doe Field food plot. Now that is a place where I haven't hunted an awful lot. I didn't spend a lot of time up there this season. Now the Doe Field's called the Doe Field because that's where I shot my first doe. It's just, that's the only reason I call it that. So I put a food plot in there. I got a real nice food plot, nearly an acre in size, of brassicas. We put in a mixture of honey hole, which I use year after year after year. It's an Antler King food plot seed blend. I also put in there some of Antler King's new products. They have radishes and they have other products like a kale, straight kale seed blend that you can put in there. It's not really a blend, it's just kale seeds. And I put that in there as well to sort of thicken that plot up. I went in there and sat one evening, looking for a nice doe or maybe a buck that would come out there following one of those does. I did have a really nice doe come in at 30 yards, hoping to get a shot. I watched her. She was a little nervous. She left the food plot, came back, left the food plot, came back, and unfortunately, she was not going to give me a shot. We're not out of food plots yet. The ridge staging food plot. Now that's where I'm sitting here. You can see the ridge staging food plot behind me. This is clover. I frost seeded. Originally, I tilled it up and planted that same throw and grow extreme radish blend here, and that grew well. I got a little bit of activity on that. I later on frost seeded it with an off brand of clover from a smaller food plot seed company, and it didn't take as well. There was something about it the deer just didn't like. It filled in nice, it looked great, I just never got deer activity here. The last couple of years since that time, I've gone through and I have broadcast, I've frost seeded every year and top seeded with just Antler King's clover blends, and it seems to have taken off very nicely. The deer like it. I do have some chickweed up on the top end that I've got to spray next year and keep after it. If you keep after these food plots, they will reward you year after year after year if you're planting clover. It's one of the reasons I like clover for food plots. I've mentioned that a number of times here on this channel. But there is nothing better than sitting up in a tree stand and watching 2 doe fawns come in and feed and enjoy your clover food plot. Now these are 2 fawns. Yeah, I'll fill a doe tag, but I do look for mature does. I do prefer to shoot the mature does just because you get more bang for your buck, so to speak, for your doe tag. And I think that that was just a kind of thing. The fawns, I think, are going to make it fine through the winter. They got plenty of food around here, hopefully, if the winter's not too harsh. But it was nice to watch them feed here, to go back and forth and feed on this food plot. They were in there for 45 minutes. And I'll tell you, it doesn't seem like much. You're just sitting in a tree stand. But you don't want to discourage them, and you don't want to disturb them. You don't want to trick them. You don't want them to feel like they're being watched and get all nervous and everything. And the hemlocks. I am telling you, there is nothing better in this world than being able to walk deep into the woods, walk to a location, set up in a tree stand like the hemlocks, and watch the woods come alive around you. That is the best to me. Sit there and hear the creek running in the background. Of course, you got the compressor station running in the background as well. That runs 24 hours a day. But you do have just the sounds of nature as the woods comes alive. I sat in the hemlock tree stand down there, looking over the mock scrape that Genevieve and I had put in last year, and then we redid it this year to improve it a little bit. Sitting down there, watching the woods come alive and watching a family of raccoons make their way back to their den for the day. You can't beat it. But that's not all I saw. When you're down in the hemlocks, you do see a lot of deer traffic. That's a location I really, really appreciate. Sitting down there, I did see a nice young buck come through. Now again, My take on it is I do have a picture or two of a decent buck that's made his way through this property relatively recently. I'm looking for either a buck that I can hang on the wall, that's the most mature buck that I have access to, or I'm looking for a nice mature doe to fill the freezer with. So this buck, it was just great to see him go back and forth through this property. I want deer like that to feel really comfortable here, so they'll stick around maybe. If they make it through the rifle season, maybe they make it through the next year's season and I get a shot at them next year. Even saw some turkeys. It's great to sit there in the woods and see turkeys go back and forth. I don't see an awful lot of turkeys here. They seem to go in waves, but they make their way through here. I've had pictures of turkeys in every food plot that I have. The Ridge staging food plot behind me is no exception. I get pictures of great pictures of turkeys there as well. But turkeys make their way through. They're not here all the time, but when they are here, it's great to see them. Well, now we're wrapping up with the last day of the crossbow season, the 37th day of the 37 days of awesome. I started the day out bright and early at the well-pad food plot. Frosty morning, perfect day to see some deer activity. And I wasn't disappointed. I sat there for a little while, wasn't seeing very much, so I got out my call, my doe estrus bleat can, where you can turn the can over, a Primos can where you can turn it over, make a little sound with it. And that called in a nice little spike buck. He came in, visited me for a while. He was looking for whoever made that sound. He was looking for a girlfriend, walking around, could not find what he was looking for. Did visit the mock scrapes a little bit, made his way around looking at that as well. It was great to sit in there and be able to see deer using those scrapes that we put in, to see them using them live. When he couldn't find what he was looking for, he went and made his way back into the woods. But that's not the only location I have, of course. I packed up all my gear when I wasn't getting any action out there in the open, out there in the well-pad food plot. I packed up my gear, went down into the hemlocks. I sat down there, climbed up in a tree, and got ready for action down there. And again, I didn't see an awful lot of movement, so eventually what I did is I pulled out that same doe bleat can, that same doe call, and thought, hey, it worked before, let's try it again. So I turned it over just a couple of times, just enough to get that sound out there. And eventually I heard some branches breaking. I heard somebody making his way through the swamp coming toward me. It was the same young buck. Yep, he just came back and he was still looking for a girlfriend, still hadn't found what he was looking for, still making the rounds. Now on that day, I had planned to make it an all-day sit. In other words, I had planned to stay out there the entire day. What I like to do is when I get a little bit too stiff and shouldn't be sitting any longer, I pack up my gear and move to a different stand, a different location. But I try to have as much exposure during those all-day sits as possible. I have sat all day on more than one occasion in the same stand without getting out of the stand. I don't like to do that for health reasons. I don't think it's particularly healthy, but also it does get wear on you after a while. So what I do is I pack up my gear, I move to another stand location and set up there. And this particular day, sitting in the hemlocks, my morning was cut short. I ended up having to call it quits because the neighbor decided to come in and cut firewood, which is right. Go ahead and cut your firewood. Pushed a whole bunch of deer to me. In fact, the way I looked at it, I almost took a shot at a young doe that had come through, gave me a broadside shot. It was a perfect 15-yard shot. It would have been an easy layup of a shot. There is plenty of time to fill those doe tags. The day after Christmas, we open up for an approximate 3-week-long season, which I like to call the late crossbow season. It's a season set aside for flintlock, muzzleloaders, and archery equipment. So here in Pennsylvania, I'll be hunting with Bunjie during that late season. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't done so already to see how we make out. I will try to do a more up-to-date video here, more real-time videos going forward. It's something I really have strived to do. This year I fell apart because I just hunted so much. All my free time went to hunting and I didn't have time to make these videos. So that's why I'm making all these videos now, to get caught up, let you know how my archery season was. It was a great season. I've had a great year this year, so I hope that continues. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you check out the Facebook page for up-to-date posts on there. And until next time, all hail Bunjie!
Second state is number one in my